everyone. My name is Elizabeth, or Ebby, and this is Addie. And we're excited to talk to you about open source hydrogen today. But before that, I'd like to start with an activity. Could you please raise your hands if you're part of, run a business or research group? Anyone? Okay, a few. No, please keep your hands up if you'd agree to a small trade. You give us access to all of your work, ideas, and patents in your business research group, and we give you, okay, less hands, that's okay. The point that we're getting to is open source. A lot of you use open source hardware, software in your everyday lives as well as your work. But how does this relate to hydrogen? Well, open source can be incredibly useful. There was a recent study in 2020 showing that the use of both 3D printed technology and open source Arduino has an estimated research savings of 94%. So I think we can agree that open source is useful, but how does it relate to hydrogen? Well, in the International Energy Agency's Net Zero by 2050 plan, they indicated that 6% of the estimated of the emission reductions needed will come from green hydrogen. However, 50% of these technologies, hydrogen included, are not past the prototype stage. So we need to go deeper. Why is this the case for hydrogen in particular? Well, you get this chicken and egg conundrum. Take hydrogen vehicles. On the one case, if you want more consumers to buy hydrogen, you need consumers demanding it. But if consumers have to drive, say, 50 miles round trip to refill these cars, they're less likely to buy them. So you can increase the amount of fill stations, increase hydrogen infrastructure, but if there aren't consumers with these cars demanding that infrastructure, it's less likely to be developed. So you get this negative cycle, slowing development and demand. On the one hand, we have the technology that exists, much of it made by the people in this building, but without consumers driving that demand, the innovation won't occur at the rate that we need to reach the 6%. Transportation is a particularly relevant example for hydrogen vehicles. 29% of global emissions are estimated to come from transportation sector. But we shouldn't make hydrogen vehicles just because of this. We should make hydrogen vehicles because of their immense potential. Hydrogen has 3 times the specific energy of gas, and fuel cells are twice as efficient as internal combustion, leading to an estimated improvement in range of 6. But if this is true and hydrogen vehicles are so incredible, why will I assume that most of you didn't come in a hydrogen-powered vehicle today? Well, hydrogen fuel cell electric motorcycles and vehicles are complicated like their name, and they can be expensive to develop. So this results in this gap in hydrogen innovation. Expensive infrastructure, lack of research into demand, high complexity will lead to slow and costly development. Our team saw this gap, and so we did what any reasonable person would do. We bought a motorcycle.
So this is what we've been kind of focusing on for the past 6 or so months since January, creating a set of open source design tools to increase the chance of penetration of hydrogen into new demand side applications. And what we've come up with is this platform you might have seen as you were walking in. It's a fuel cell electric motorcycle with basically every component that you need for a standard fuel cell electric vehicle. An electric traction motor inverter, storage system, hydrogen fuel cell, swappable hydrogen tank, energy management system. Some of these components we started with off-the-shelf components, and then we moved on any component that we couldn't find off the shelf we designed in-house and developed, and all of those components are fully open source. And the first version of the system is completely air-cooled because of the low power required in the system. We're moving to liquid-cooled versions for the higher power systems that we're developing in the future. And this is a photo of the bike right now. It currently operates as an entirely, it's a fuel cell electric vehicle. It's a little bit too early for us to reasonably quote you guys range and top speed numbers and performance right there. We're waiting for track testing data we're going to get in middle of October. Right now we have some simulation results that tell us we're expecting around a 225 mile range and a top speed of 140 miles an hour. But we're also developing an open source simulation framework in addition to the hardware platform. And the way we're kind of approaching this is by ensuring that that simulation is as accurate to the hardware as possible using 2 methods. First is dynamometer testing. So based on the US Department of Energy vehicle testing procedures, that's how we take powertrain data, and that's how we make our powertrain model in simulation as accurate as possible. And then for like more difficult to model situations and data for harder to collect environments, we use track testing on various set of tracks that we partner with. And we use that to create a minimization algorithm that really minimizes our sim to real gap. And the reason we're doing this is because it's a lot faster to iterate sometimes in simulation than it is on hardware. And if we have a simulation that's accurate to hardware, we can provide that as a tool for others to use as well. But a little bit on like why we think this is actually useful, and one of the biggest things that's been useful for us is our research at MIT. So this is a map that we've created. It's kind of small, I apologize, but a map of the research areas in fuel cell electric vehicles right now. And this is mostly on the demand side and the engineering side, but it's a very complicated overlap of a whole bunch of different fields of engineering. And right now our research is focusing a lot on energy management system design and how do we separate, like, how do we figure out how much current comes from the fuel cell, the battery, and the various components of the system, and how do we do power sharing? And a lot of that algorithm development usually in research is done a lot on simulation because it's very difficult to justify buying like a Toyota Mirai every single time you have to implement your energy management system on hardware. So we've been using the simulation platform, our hardware platform a lot to be testing our research in hardware. And it's given us like incredible increased confidence in our results, you know, because like we can see real data and compare it to what we're expecting out of simulation. So one of our big goals with this project is to reduce the cost and complexity it is to evaluate research on hardware. So we think this platform could be super useful for researchers, not just at R1 research institutions like MIT, but also research institutions all around the world and like in developing countries and in countries like the US, because like great ideas can come from anywhere, right? As long as like we provide people the right tools to evaluate their ideas, there's like no reason anybody should be left out of the infrastructure of like developing like demand side applications of hydrogen. But the other side I want to talk about real quick is the side of education. So this platform is actually incredible for education. We found this out through our own work in our university. So our research group is kind of big. We have some faculty, professors, graduate students, and undergrads all working on this project. And while the graduate student side of things are mostly working on the research direction and the academic contributions, we have a lot of undergrads who just really got in their hands-on, built this hardware platform for us. And like in undergraduate education, there's not often a chance to get like hands-on applications with hydrogen. It's a very like rare thing to have undergrads building hydrogen systems. There's safety concerns and this, that, and the other thing, right? So having a platform like this that was really designed to be built and played with was an incredible opportunity for a lot of our undergrads. And some of them are here today, so feel free to go talk to them and see how they like it and how they've been working with it. But before we end, one of the other things that our group is looking for going forward is this idea of more creative, like finding more creative demand side applications for hydrogen. A lot of the time, it's very much assumed that hydrogen is like useful for like large scale trucks and huge infrastructure and things like that. But we see this gap, the kind of unexplored gap that we've found through our research, and we're defining this term called small hydrogen is hydrogen energy systems that have a peak total power output of around less than 50 kilowatts. And the reason we think this is a gap is because like there are many systems out there that don't require a lot of power, but require a lot of energy density and like light weight factors and like all this kind of stuff where hydrogen could really push some applications. And if we have enough small applications, that also increases demand required to build infrastructure and things like that. So one of the places we're looking at this is actually in emerging markets. So we have a lot of time in emerging markets, what's happening is those countries are looking to skip the whole fossil fuel transition and move straight to renewables. And so it proves like a great test bed for a lot of these small hydrogen systems. So here's a couple projects we're looking at. In Ghana and Vietnam both, we're evaluating a lot of like hydrogen for like mobility applications, so like motorcycles, and like in Ghana we have this really interesting project with a nonprofit called Moving Health that's working on, they make three-wheeled ambulances to connect the rural regions to the urban population centers. And since gas prices have got so expensive in Ghana, they're looking at electrification and also hydrogen as possible alternatives. And Franklin from Costa Rica is here with us, and we've been talking to him about some projects maybe in Costa Rica, and we're also looking to anybody in the room who wants to work with us. We are really trying to bring a community together to work on hydrogen in many, many areas around the world. So we want to focus on empowering communities to enable sustainable living through this idea that we're calling accessible, economical, and equitable green hydrogen from the entire scale. Before we end, because we only have a few minutes left, I want to thank our team. Our team is here with us today. Like, we're only 2 people up on this stage, but our team is just an incredible group of they're absolutely wonderful, and our sponsors and project partners as well for all the support they've given us. So thank you for your time, and we have a couple of minutes for questions if anybody has anything. But, yeah. All right. Well, thank you, and I hope you all have a great rest of the day at the summit.